All right. Hey, everyone. All right. Today is now time to focus on mobile malware. So let's get to it. So first of all, how do we define malware? A very, very broad and generic definition: software with malicious intent. Okay. So it's very, very generic. And before we dig deeper in this malware stuff, I want to point out the relation with the security vulnerabilities aspect that we mentioned in the past lecture. Uh, Malware may actually need to use and exploit security vulnerabilities to carry on its malicious actions. Okay, so it's not always the case. Sometimes you actually get an application which contains malicious functionality, and this malicious functionality, doesn't need any bug to do whatever it needs to do. But in some cases, the malware may actually need to break some protections and bypass some security mechanisms. And to do this, usually you need bugs, and that's where bugs and security vulnerabilities kick in. For now, our discussion on malware will focus on the malicious behavior per se, and why the attackers want to do what they're trying to do, and various techniques associated with what they're trying to do. But we're not going to check how is the malware actually doing this if it doesn't have any permission. So here we're talking about the goal, the behavior, why they want to do this, and how they do this. Okay, but we're focusing less on some aspects like, how to specifically bypass the security mechanism. That's what we're going to check better later on with the vulnerability analysis and detection. So the first question that should come into mind is, does mobile malware even exist? Malware traditionally has been affecting a lot of, for example, Windows machines and so forth. But a common question is whether malware on Android or on iOS actually exists or not. And there are, depending on who you ask, there are different answers. This is a slide that I took from Google. And if you ask Google, that's a picture they want to show you. Where basically there are many, all devices have a sandbox, and 95% of devices have Verify app. Most devices do this, and then less than this are actually installing apps from outside the Play Store, and less than this are actually they're installed even after a warning, and less than these are actually trying to evade malicious security protections, and less than this percent, less than a small question mark, are actually able to harm and evade detection. Okay, so the picture I'm trying to show you is, yes, there is malware, but it's actually affecting a very, 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 very small part of our use base. If you are security companies, usually the picture is different. Again, I picked this slide many years ago from McAfee. Nothing against McAfee, but again, that's one of their slides where they were showing that the trend of malware actually is rising and so forth. This was in 2016, but of course there are many slides from many different vendors that show similar trends. And these graphs may actually be accurate in the sense that if you actually count the number of mobile malware samples, there is actually a rise. Okay. But is it the proper number to use to understand what kind of what was the actual malware ecosystem on mobile phones? I don't know. And I'm also sure that the percentages that I showed before from the Google slide are also accurate. But what I'm trying to convey here is, different players in the ecosystem want to tell you different stories, and then it's up to you as a listener to be critical about what you're listening and who you're listening to try to draw some conclusions. Okay. Malware on mobile does exist, but it is not as a big deal as some companies or some companies that only live on mobile malware trying to push you to think. Maybe it's not like some super small thing that you shouldn't care about as Google trying to tell you, but try to be balanced in your judgment about these things. And given for granted that some mobile malware exists, why does it actually exist? What's the point? And that's a question you should always ask yourself. Why would a human being spend their time writing malicious software? It takes time to do this, and it's also illegal. So why would they do this? In general, please try to always ask why. Again, this is beyond mobile security. There are many things that seem really basic and straightforward and obvious, and sometimes they are, but if you ask the why, sometimes the why uncovers some aspects of this obvious thing that you didn't consider before. Okay, so always try to have this critical mindset. In general, I've identified 4 different trusts on why malware exists. The first one is just for fun, just to brag with friends, and that's a valid reason. The second one is to become rich, so somehow they have a way to monetize it. How do they do this? We're going to explore this today. Another thing is targeted attacks. For example, you have state-sponsored attackers against, it could be, against a terrorist. So in this case, you stole some malware on a terrorist phone to get some data out of him, or depending on the country where you live on, or depending on the country that they actually launches these attacks, you can have targeted attacks against activists, people involved in politics and so forth. And the first trust, unfortunately, it's an emerging threat, and it goes under the label of stalkware or spyware. So today, as you can imagine, we're going to go through all these things in a bit deeper way, so that we can analyze pros and cons, why they do this, and how we can defend against these threats. So let's focus on this just for fun part. So again, just for fun means just for fun. Some people write malware just as a prank, and they do stupid things like changing your wallpaper to something stupid. They do this so that they can brag, so they can tell you, oh, I hacked your phone and then I wrote to all your contacts writing about this. Or it could be because I don't like a specific person, and then I want to do something stupid. Okay. Of course, depending on how you do this, it may be legal or illegal. For example, I'm sure every one of you actually try to steal the friend's phone and try to post something stupid on Facebook. We all did it. But depending on the kind of things you do, you may cross specific legal barriers. Okay, so for example, maybe posting something stupid on Facebook, if it's just like a generic sentence, I don't think it causes any harm, and it's actually any harm. It's actually funny. If the other person also thinks it's funny and replies back, I think it's okay. But of course, you could say, oh, I stole some malicious application on my friend's phone because it was fun. That's illegal. You cannot do this. Okay. So the fact that it's just for fun doesn't make it right, and doesn't make it legal. So please pay attention. You may go into trouble for this. The second big thing, of course, is to get money. Okay, this is most often the case, and the ability of malware authors or of people that use malware to monetize their effort is one of the biggest incentive. Some tricks to monetize things is information stealing and selling. So they steal your information and they sell it in the black market. This could be credentials, personal data, and so forth. Another trend is to ask you to pay. Again, we have some slides on this later. This goes under the label of ransomware, where I do something and then I tell you, you want me to revert the behavior, the malicious behavior that I just executed. Please pay me something. Please pay me a ransom, from which the name ransomware. Another thing is advertisement. There is a lot of money involved in advertisement, and you may be wondering, how is it possible that some malware somehow relates to advertisement and somehow they get money? Well, we're going to uncover some advertising-based malicious schemes, and we're going to see how some of these schemes, we are talking about frauds in the order of billions of dollars. Other things, Bitcoin mining, it's not clear whether this is very successful or very profitable or not. But again, there have been some malware playing on the card of Bitcoin mining. And another thing we've seen last time was about sending premium SMS. So you push the user, or you try to initiate sending a text message to a premium number, which automatically would incur a big bill on the user's phone. This could be like $5, so it's nothing super huge, but of course, doing this across a number of users or doing this on a recurring system, like on a weekly basis, this money add up, and that's another way the bad guys can monetize. The third big category that I mentioned was targeted attack. Target attacks are those attacks that that are really trying to attack a specific or a very small set of individuals. Okay, and that's why we use the word targeted. And again, sometimes a very specific person is targeted. These are the most advanced and sophisticated attacks. And again, they make the thing work only for you. So it's getting very, very difficult to detect it, in general, because maybe the malware sample doesn't work on general phones, but only work on your case. Or it could be made so that, this malware never sees the light except on your specific phone and so forth. Okay. These are very dangerous. And usually the other problem is that the commissioner, the person or the group of people that somehow pay for the development and for the launching these attacks usually have a lot of money. We're talking about governments, so-called state-sponsored attackers, and these guys, they can invest millions and millions of dollars to attack a specific, another politician, or an activist, and so forth. Okay. So we're talking about very, very well-resourced attackers. Again, that potential targets could be political activists, journalists, and so forth. Okay, so there is a wide range of potential problems at risk, and it's very difficult to defend yourself from these target attacks because, again, they are very well-resourced and they have a lot of time on their end, and they can really produce some malware that is really targeted for you. Same goes on the vulnerability aspect. Some security vulnerabilities are discovered and used only by target attacks. And if it's a vulnerability, if it's exploited only on a very small scale, of course, this makes it more difficult to detect in a large bucket of potential vulnerabilities. So they're able to stay under the radar with this, focusing on a very small set of individuals. And then the last category we had was the stalkware or spoofware. It's weird. It's a bad category. It's an emerging threat. The goal here is to stalk a target person to understand where is she going, or where is he going, or who he or she meeting with, things like this. And the term spoofware comes because a common target is spying on your significant other. Okay, so you're worried that your significant other is cheating on you, and so what do? You install this kind of programs that somehow spy on your partner, try to understand what kind of person is talking to, the positions, the GPS coordinates, pictures that this person has taken, and so forth. Okay, so it's very, very creepy, and unfortunately there is a business behind this, and they are sold by real companies. It's unfortunately tricky to fully label as malware. Usually these companies, in the past, these companies would advertise their product as, oh, you have the right to know. I have some screenshots later. Then, of course, they got a lot of, you have a right to know or what your partner is doing. So they were somehow legitimizing the taking these programs and installing them on the partner's phone. They got a lot of backlash from the press about how creepy these applications are, and now they rebranded themselves to be targeting or monitoring your child. Okay, but of course, under the hood, they also making clear that you could do this to monitor whoever you want. So it is tricky to fully label as malware because there are some legitimate use case, and again, these companies spin their product with monitoring kits, which makes them, it's more difficult to flag them as illegal, and it's more difficult to kick them off the market, for example, or to use the law to say, you should not be developing this. And again, that's a weird category because for the normal malware, of course, there is no actual business. I mean, there is a business, but it's like in a black market, or it's known to be illegal. While in this case, there are actual companies that are able to keep doing what they're doing. Cool. So I would like now to go a bit deeper on what does malware do and why. And again, these were the 4 high-level categories, but there are a number of different concrete things that these guys are actually doing. So, and things changed from when we started with mobile phones to the current situation right now. We started with Nokia phones, and the first mobile malware, to the best of my knowledge, comes from 2004. It's called Cabiar, and it targeted Symbian OS. Probably some of you don't even know what Symbian OS is. This was a very old operating system that was running on Nokia phones. Okay, there was no Android, there was no iOS. It was Symbian OS. Okay, so there was a malware written for Symbian OS, and the payload of this malware was basically just writing some Carib pop-up message. And the idea is that this Carib was the nickname of the group that developed this malware. And the idea was that this malware would try to propagate itself through Bluetooth, and that's about it. So it's super lame, and this was done for bragging rights, okay? Then another malware popped up just after, slightly more annoying. It basically was corrupting files related to important functionalities like web browsing and camera. And the idea was that it would replace all icons with skulls. Very cool, I would say. And that's about it. Okay, so as you can see, it's quite simple. They try to do some bragging, they try to do some damage, but there is nothing super sophisticated here. And then smartphones arrived. With smartphones came a lot of different applications, and users started to pour data over these phones. And when users try to put data over these phones, which are more and more powerful, then of course there is more sensitive things, there is more computing power, and these become better targets for attackers. And at some point, malware got real. So one of the first actual malware was detected in 2011. It was called Plankton, and it was actually found in the Play Store. The idea was that it would leak users' private information, such as contact list, bookmark, and browser history. And the strategy to actually get money out of this was basically to sell this information. So imagine this private information for one person, they're probably useless. But if you are able to get this information for maybe 1 million users, maybe you can guess why, you can imagine why this stuff actually gets valuable. And basically you could sell this on the black market and get money out of it. Another malware of the same year was Drawing Code Fu, again found in the Play Store. This would actually run a root exploit. What is a root exploit? We did not discuss this yet, but basically a root exploit is a specific program that tries to exploit a vulnerability that allows an attacker to do privilege escalation. So root exploit basically it's a program uses a bug found from other people in the operating system so that at the end of it, this program runs as root. That's the name, root exploit. He had bot-like capabilities, so some functionality that was maybe waiting for commands, and then when the bot master would actually send commands, these programs would act as instructed by the bot master. And again, monetization strategy. Well, this botnet aspect was very powerful because if this malware infected thousands or millions of devices, basically the bot master could control simultaneously thousands or millions of devices, which can be very powerful. For example, one could start orchestrating a distributed denial service and start sending spam around, or steal data on request, or performing device admin or monitoring functionalities at commands of the bot master. Okay, so it's very, very powerful. And again, once again, these bots could be sold on the black market. As we'll see later, it's not always the same person that basically writes the malware, infect the people, and use it. These services, like, hey, I have access of 1 million bot, this specific thing could be sold to other people, and that's another way to get money. As I mentioned, the malware author is not always the malware user, and there are different roles in the malware community that, again, they could be filled by the same person, but it's not necessary it. For example, we have whoever writes the malware app, let's say the malware developer. Then we have, this is the guy that actually coded it. Then we have whoever carries on the infection. So sometimes I take the malware from some people, and then I do the infection, and then I use this malware to infect people with. But I'm the guy, I'm the person that does the infection, but I'm not the one that actually wrote the malware. So there is the writing the malware, and then there is the infection stage. And again, there might be different strategies to actually infect users. And then at the end of this, when I have the ability to install an arbitrary program to this user, I may want to use malware X written by somebody else. Another thing is whoever directs the malware to do X, Y, Z. So it could be that I take care of the infection of 1 million users using malware that I didn't even write. And then I can sell this capability to somebody else. And now this somebody else has the power to say, hey, malware in these phones, please do X, Y, Z. So somehow there is a different role here. There is the operator that somehow is the one in charge of saying what this malware should do. And again, it could be that there is a same person or same organization behind all the steps, but it could be there are three different entities. Okay, where I sell the infection to somebody else, and this somebody else then orchestrates what these bots should actually do. And these are the ones that actually pull the trigger. These are the ones that says malware, please send tons of emails to everybody. And then the last one is whoever actually decides what the malware should do. In the sense that you can have the operator that they bought the botnet from somebody else and now has the ability to direct a bunch of bots to do something. But it could be that the customer is somewhere else that basically pays this operator to say, please, I would like to bring website XYZ down. Can you please send tons of traffic to it? And so you have the operator that is maybe, some other person that is not even maybe technically skilled. They can just pay for a service to bring down another website. Okay. So again, the one example could be bringing website XYZ.com down. These roles are fulfilled by different persons. It could be there is different organizations. It could be the same organization. So it's kind of overlap. But again, these are 4 high-level roles or aspects that are related to malware. And again, don't be too confused on whether there is some kind of organization X did something and then this part was sold to somebody else, because again, there are at least 4 different entities in the malware community, and it could be that the first part did something and then is selling this part to the second part. And then the second part could monetize the way they want, and the first part at this point they don't care because they already monetized it. Cool. Moving on, another interesting malware still for the same era of 2011 was Zitmo. So Zitmo stands for Zeus in the mobile, and Zeus was a very common malware for Windows, and it was a banking Trojan, so attacking somehow banking websites and banking, trying to steal banking credentials and so forth. And the idea was that at the beginning, you have Bank of America, and then, for example, of course, you have your program, and then there is a virus on your program, and this could be Zeus, and then they would try to steal your username and password. However, later on, like in 2011, they started to have a different, this you have Zeus attacking this machine. As I mentioned, in 2011, banks started to adopt so-called two-factor authentication, where basically they would, to authenticate, you would need to have your phone, and they would send you some kind of code on your phone, and then you need to provide the code from your laptop to the Bank of America or to the banking website to show that you actually are the person you're trying to impersonate. And at that point, there was a new mobile malware called Zitmo, which was basically the mobile partner of Zeus. And so the Zeus would infect the machine, Zitmo would infect the mobile phones, and this Zitmo would actually send the code to the Zeus counterpart, so that now Zeus had both user and password and also the code to authenticate and somehow authenticate on the bank. Now, again, from 2011, again, these are a very high-level overview of the first round of malware, and there are many, many more samples. These slides are just meant to provide a high-level overview of the different ways that people came up with in terms of attacking people, in terms of writing malicious functionality, in terms of monetization. Is not meant to be an exhaustive list, but is meant to be quite comprehensive way of how you could make money of actually writing malware, and so that we can put ourselves in the mindset of the attacker and try to somehow cut their income short, so that maybe they are less incentivized to do this. So moving on with this HIPPO SMS, this was a malware that was starting sending SMS to premium numbers. Again, nothing super particular. They will get a lot of money sending this premium SMS. This was interesting because it was very stealthy, and so all the malware-related SMS were actually deleted, the ones that are sent, but also sometimes you would subscribe a user to some kind of a subscription, and then you would receive something back from the subscription. This malware would actually automatically delete all the messages related to this kind of a premium services, so that the user would not suspect anything, and at the end of the month he will get a bill with a very high bill, and the bad guy already run away with the money. Okay, moving on with some years, there was another sample called Bitcoin Miner. It was quite interesting. Basically, there are two different things here. First of all, there was a malware that somehow trying to mine Bitcoin in the background. And the first question is, are mobile phones powerful enough to actually mine Bitcoin? Now Bitcoins are much more valuable, but also in 2014, it was already quite tricky to mine Bitcoins. So it is not clear. But the interesting part here is that these were legitimate apps that were repackaged to mine Bitcoin. So this again was legitimate apps that were repackaged and then pushed in the Play Store. And one of the question is, was it worth it for the bad guys? And then, if you check the number of installations, it was quite high. So nothing crazy, but still more than 1 million people installed these applications. And, if you think about this, if it was worth it or not, after all, what the bad guys did was to take a legitimate app, so somebody else wrote it, they repackaged it, and this is, you can do this very easily. You inject the malicious payload. In this case, we're just mining Bitcoin, and now you have an app, and you can just upload it on the Play Store. In this case, many people picked it up. So I don't know if this got any money, but it got any money to the attackers, but it was great enough to have a slide for it. So great job. Another interesting one was Gulligan. We're transitioning to more recent times, and this is when things started to get more serious. It was all over the news. Gulligan malware attack hits on 1 million Google accounts. So there were these malicious mobile apps that were trying to steal Google accounts. They managed to steal and hijack more than 1 million cases. It's a lot. And they were trying to root devices, steal authentication tokens, download additional apps. So it was a lot of damage. And yeah, it made a lot of impact, and it was all over the news. So this was already a long, quite comprehensive overview of all the different types you can do bad things with. There are, of course, more recent malware, but in terms of topology, many of the recent trends fit very well in what I already described. So, for example, there are banking trojans. There were banking trojans in the past. Now they're more advanced. They try more stealthy. They try to be more convincing when they do the attack. But in terms of category, they try to monetize by trying to get access to your bank. Same for information stealers. Same for malware that somehow exploit the vulnerability. These patterns keep reemerging, and current malware trends are more stealthy. But in terms of categories, what we covered is already a good sample set. Moving on, another thing was this ransomware. I mentioned this before. Very interesting case. This ransomware is both available, let's say, for mobile phones, but also for Windows machines, or I guess Linux machine. And the idea is that they will create some sort of do something to your phone. One thing could be to encrypt your SD card, encrypt your photos, encrypt your data, and then it will try to put pressure on you and say, we blocked your device. This is the FBI, and we found out that here in this case it would say, as a result of full scanning of your device, some suspicious files have been found. So it's they try to put some pressure and say that you were detecting and doing something you shouldn't have been done, and what they would do is to lock your device, encrypt all your data, and then ask for money. And they would say, this is FBI, we found you. If you pay now, we're going to close an eye, but please pay now. If you don't, then we're not gonna unlock your device. Seems totally legitimate. Believe it or not, this stuff actually works. And in some cases, I guess people fell for it. So, oh, my God, no, the FBI, I don't want it. Take my money. In some other cases, I guess people understood this is fake. But if the phone was actually locked, maybe it's better to pay with respect to losing the phone. Or, in their mind of the user, they would think I lose my phone or I lost all my pictures. On mobile phones, it's trickier to pull ransomware off because it's tricky to lock it. It's tricky to encrypt all the pictures because now you need to have permissions and so forth. Also, many photo apps allow you to take backups automatically. So it's kind of tricky, and their ransomware is much more effective on the personal computer space. But again, there were some samples on mobile phones. And again, the pattern is try to push for a sense of urgency and trying to ask for money to undo bad things that happen to your phone. Yeah. This point was actually mentioning your attendance on the forbidden pornographic sites has been fixed, and for this reason, your device has been locked. Okay, so they also try to put some kind of a social pressure on you to actually comply with the request of getting money out of it. Another example was this. You got a fine of $200 or no, but the interesting part was that they were taking a photo of you, and they were mentioning your contact notification. Saying that we're gonna tell all your contacts with your picture what you were doing and you were not supposed to do, and it could be maybe you were not doing anything. But if I receive a message from a friend with your picture, with your name associated to some weird behavior, then it might be very uncomfortable, and so maybe I'm going to be willing to pay. So that's another trick that people used in the past. Now, moving on this spyware and stalkware, or spyware as I called it before. Again, it's an emerging trend. There are several companies trying to sell products that somehow spy on users' phone, so that if I install this spyware on your phone, then I control exactly what's going on, what kind of person you're talking to, messages, photos, locations, emails, and stuff like this. And depending on how sophisticated these programs are, then you can get more information. And one that caught my eye many years ago when I did a slide was this FlexiSpy. It's a company that still exists as of today. They started clearly telling you, you have the right to know what your partner is doing. And so they had things like catch cheaters, or you have the right to know, and things like this. As I mentioned before, they got a crazy amount of backlash from the press. So now they respin the product to say you have the right to know what your kids do, or you have the right to know to monitor what your kids do. It's very interesting because it's very clear that they are playing with this kind of, oh, it's only for the kids. But then if you check what kind of things they sell, they clearly sell things that they are not necessary to actually monitor your kids. So if you check the websites, at least when I checked it last time, there were a bunch of features. You could call logs, recordings, Facebook, WhatsApp, Skype, call logs, and email recording, calendar, location track, keylogger. It's crazy stuff. Remote photo acquisition. It's interesting that at this point you should know that even if you have all the permissions, it's not easy to implement some of these features, or it's not possible. And so some of these features actually require root. The cool part, I guess, is that if you go on the website, they actually provide assistance. So you can get into contact with an expert that tells you exactly how to get root access to the target phone so that you can enable the full functionality of this spyware application. So yeah, they call it installation service. It's a creepy service, and there are unfortunately many companies providing this kind of a service. And again, it's also called spyware because many times it's used against your significant other. It's a very big deal. It's very difficult to protect from this threat because if you have all the malicious applications I discussed up till now, until now, well, if you only install the very, very famous apps, there is a chance for you to stay away from this malware. If you only install Gmail, WhatsApp, all these big ones, then your chances of getting malicious apps on your phone are very, very low. However, if you cannot trust your partner, then you're into trouble, because of course your partner usually knows your PIN code, he knows how to unlock the phone, and so forth. And it's not that you keep your phone always with you. Maybe when you sleep, of course, it's not that you keep the phone with you. You put your phone on your table next to your bed, right? And again, if you don't trust your partner during the night could get the phone, unlock it, try to install the malicious application, and then put the phone back there. So once the trust is over, the partner in your life has a crazy amount of power over your phone, especially because usually the partner has access to it. Okay, so this is a bigger deal than many people think. It's they call this power, so it's not super malicious, but in terms of a relationship, it's extremely powerful, and it could be extremely problematic. And again, it's very difficult for you to protect yourself from this threat. So it's a problem, and it's an emerging problem, or it has been a problem for a while. Let's say that now, likely, there has been a push from the community to highlight this problem and to raise a discussion and awareness about this kind of a threat. Cool. It's also quite expensive. Last time I checked, these were the prices. Again, depending on what kind of stuff you need to do. And it's sad, but there is a business about this stuff. Cool. So moving on to different things, we have this Android RCS. So this is the name of the malware, and is a very sophisticated malware used for target attacks. So again, it was used against specific targets. Could be politicians, could be activists, and so forth. And it was not just meant to be used by anybody or trying to stall all possible users. So it was not uploaded on the Play Store hoping that the user would actually install it. No, this was done against specific people. And this was used in terms of state-sponsored attacks and also called advanced persistent threats. You can see maybe APTs in the news. This is what we're talking about, target attacks. And yeah, this was developed by a hacking team, which I'm not very proud of, but it was an Italian security company. And they were producing this Android RCS and different, let's say, different artifacts, and they were selling these products to shady governments. If this was done for, one question could be, if this Android RCS was done to, as a target attack, and it was not done to infect everybody but only specific peoples, how come we know about the existence of this Android RCS? And if this was really used by shady governments, how come we normal people know about this Android RCS? Because irony, these guys got hacked pretty badly, and everything from them was released on WikiLeaks. So from WikiLeaks, we happen to know about Android RCS. All their emails were leaked. So there was also attachments, so you could see what kind of to what kind of governments they were selling this, and some of these were actually problematic. So that's why we know all these things. And there was a long list of SMS controllable features. So once this malware was installed, then by sending SMS to the victim, you could control it. You could ask this malware to do something for you. And again, the list was very, very long. And it was like some kind of a plugin based system, so that you could just add things and control everything through SMS. Again, we go from leaking private conversation to location, device tracking, screenshots. And again, depending who you are, if you're an activist, a journalist, then this is a kind of threat that could be problematic for you. Again, also because usually the persons attacking you are governments. They have tens of millions or even more to actually attack you. So they are well resourced and very well determined to attack you. Okay, so next topic. So as of now, we covered a lot of ground on different actual malware things and how people are able to monetize this and the pros and cons. And now I am gonna move on with malware and frauds related to advertisement. And there are some interesting twists, and as I'm gonna discuss, this is actually a bigger deal than what you may think in terms of monetary impact. Before this, I need 1 sec. All right, so we're gonna move on this advertisement thing. Let's get to it. So several money-related malware and frauds are actually related to advertisement, and it's a very, very complex ecosystem. And these malware authors can use each part of this complex ecosystem to abuse the ecosystem, and they do this so in multiple ways. So before we dig deeper in these frauds, I'm going to explain how the system works. We have the app developer that writes their own application, and maybe at the beginning it doesn't want to have the application to be as a paid app, but it wants to be free. On the other side, of course, it needs to monetize their effort. And advertisement is one way of doing so. So the way it works is the following. Another entity in this ad ecosystem is the developer of the ad frameworks. So basically, there are companies that develop advertising frameworks, and these companies develop these frameworks that are supposed to be used as libraries. So basically, if I'm an app developer and I want to display advertisements, it's tricky for me to go around to companies. Hey, do you want me to put your name on my app? Of course, it doesn't work this way. You go out and you look for companies that develop advertising frameworks. And once you do this, what these advertising frameworks do is somehow to collect companies that want to advertise, to show advertisement to users, and somehow this advertising framework automatically fetches things and displays them in the application. So let's see how it works. Let's say that the advertising framework has an advertisement network backend, so some kind of a backend or website or network-based stuff, and you have the brands that want to advertise, and somehow they buy and they pay this advertising framework. In exchange, this advertising framework is going to show the names and the logos of these products within applications of their customers. So the customers are application developers that included the advertising framework in their own app. And so once this process is done, then the advertising framework is going to be able to say, hey, please fetch me relevant advertisements. And these advertisements are going to be shown in the application itself. The user is going to see it, and that's how the advertisement is served to the users. Again, the component of the application that takes care of this is this advertising framework. So they are very convenient for the developers because they just include some piece of code, some library that they can take from the developer of the advertising framework, and then the framework does everything by itself. It's going to show something to the user and so forth. So at this point, while once the user see this is enough to get some money out of it. So basically, the developer of the advertising frameworks gets some money out of the companies that have been advertised. For example, let's say Nesquik. I'm a big fan of Nesquik. Nesquik pays the advertising frameworks, and then the advertising frameworks can say, I've shown your logo to end users. Please pay me. Okay. On the other side, the developer of the advertising framework share part of the income with the app developers. Okay, and that's why the app developer is somehow incentivized to include advertisement in their application. So that's how the system works. If the user actually goes and click on the advertisement, then of course the system somehow records the user clicked, and the advertising framework developer and the application developer gets much more money. Okay, so the developer really hope that you're going to click on it, or really hope that you're going to watch the full video. All these kind of high interaction things, they get monetized in a better way, and that's why some applications somehow push you to do this kind of again, high interaction things. It could be clicking, or it could be watching the full video of an advertisement, depending on the how much attention the user needs to put and how much time the user needs to dedicate, then the app developer and the advertising framework gets different kind of money. Okay, cool. So now you know more or less how the system works, and let's try to see a bit more details on advertising frameworks. There are many companies. This is not just one developer, and some of these companies are big. One of them is Google. Okay. These companies are not all the same. They are different in many aspects. Again, here I'm talking about advertising frameworks, and they could be different from the money that they pay to the app developer. So what kind of proportion of the income they split with the app developer, depending on how big they are. They may be able to ask for more or less from the advertisers, from the companies that want to show advertisement. So again, depending on the how big these companies are and how no these companies are, they might be able to get more income and so share more income with the app developer. It could be that the cost for an advertiser is different, so that a company maybe goes to Google AdMob and doesn't go to another company because it's cheaper to go with one than the other one. And these companies may be different in terms of what kind of aggressivity, what kind of a how aggressively the ad is delivered and using which technique. And again, it could be just showing some image, it could be showing a video, it could be showing a notification. I have some examples later on. The other thing is the level of retargeting they can offer. This is a very important aspect, is retargeting. I have more on this topic later on. But the idea is that they want to show me advertisements that are relevant for me. Okay, so somehow if they can understand what I like, they can target me with specific types of advertisements. That's where the retargeting term kicks in. And again, some of these techniques to deliver advertisement are very, very annoying. And I think next slide is about these techniques. Before I go to that, I just want to give you an idea about what kind of money that you can earn with this. It's very difficult, of course, to get significant money out of this advertiser because it's very difficult to write an app that is so popular. But I remember there was this game called Flappy Bird. I think you guys are old enough to remember this. I think it was popular maybe 3-4 years ago, but it was extremely popular. I honestly don't remember how many installations it had. I think maybe it was 100 or 500 million. And again, it was a very, very simple game. And the developer monetized this through advertisements. And somehow, at some point, the developer decided to withdraw and to delete the app from the Play Store because it was getting too much money. Yeah, you got it right. So my understanding is that this guy was taking something like $50,000 per day from advertisement, and then he claimed that this amount of money ruined his life, and he decided to stop it. And after this, people went crazy, started insulting him, and so forth. But that just to give you an idea that the amount of money you can get by showing one advertisement to one user is probably zero. But if you have users in the order of millions and millions and millions, then there is some serious money going around. It's a big business. Cool. So depending on how aggressive an advertisement framework is in pushing for advertisements, then you may be able to classify this as adware. So adware is some program that somehow uses aggressive advertisement techniques. Again, as always, is not black and white. It's not that you are either an adware or not, but you may have features that look like an adware, or features that may upset some users, and so forth. Okay, some cases, of course, are clearly adware, where basically maybe they have 3-4 notifications, things popping on top, and so forth. But in most cases, it's like borderline or very annoying, and you can call this adware. Some of the techniques could be notifications. And again, notification, you're probably aware of this. some notifications can be done in a sticky way, which means that if you try to swipe them off, it doesn't work. So sticky notifications, you cannot swipe them off. Some apps create shortcuts, so somehow you have your launcher app and you see other icons that you have never seen before, and so that maybe you press on this icon and now you go through to the website of the company that try to advertise itself. They could use overlays, so these things that pop on top, and you cannot they pop on top of whatever app you're using, or most commonly they use in-app banners. So while you use the app that includes advertisement, then there is some kind of advertisement there. Again, these kind of in-app things are okay, but there are some of these techniques are very, very annoying. And I think now they're even some of these are against the term of service from the Play Store, but for a while they've been used, and some of these are still legal. And again, some companies allow you to decide how much of these aggressive techniques you want to use. So I remember I was playing with one of these advertising companies in the past, and they give you access to some kind of a web dashboard where you can say, yes, I'm okay with this, and please, yes, enable shortcuts, but do not use this other thing. So you can select which techniques to actually use. You can select, yes, I'm okay with the full screen videos for 10 seconds, things like this. They give you a lot of granularity. In general, what users usually are more pissed about is advertisement that pop out of nowhere, so that you don't know which app is responsible for which app. This is the worst that can happen, because basically you install a bunch of apps, and if you have advertisement in an specific application, then this is the application. I know this. Fine, I'm the one installed it. I mean, advertisement, we know that developers monetize through advertisements, so everything is fair game. But let's say that you're using your phone on application X that doesn't have advertisement, or if it has it, yes, it's something very small, and then a pop-up message kicks in that shows you something, like some kind of advertising for a game. You will get super pissed. First of all, you were interrupted. Second of all, sometimes you have no idea how to understand which app was the one that generated this kind of a full screen thing. And again, this can be quite frustrating, because if you don't know which app it is that generated this, then it's very difficult for the user to remove this app from your phone. And so there you need to guess what's going on, guess which app you installed recently that somehow could be responsible for this bad behavior, and so forth. Could be very annoying. Other apps that I've seen were somehow having advertisement on the lock screen. So the lock screen isn't an app per se, and in some phones you can customize it, and some apps were actually putting an advertisement in the lock screen. So somehow you take the phone, you try to unlock it, but before unlocking it, you're going to see an advertisement, and only after a while you're going to be able to unlock it. So it's so maddening. Again, it's not technically fraud, but it's very annoying. And again, some of this could actually, as of now, be against the term of service. So it could be that some of these are not allowed anymore. So the net result is the user gets very annoyed, and but depending on how aggressive you are, it is more likely that that the user clicks on the advertisement, which means it's more likely that that the app developer and the advertising framework may get more money. However, you should not exaggerate this, because if the user is too annoyed, then she would really try to find the app and uninstall it immediately. So again, depending on the scenario, depending on your target users, depending on what kind of application you have, then you may push for more aggressive things, or maybe not. Again, for example, if you have an application that is supposed to be relaxing and so forth, and then you have tons of advertising popping out, it's probably sure that this person would uninstall the application immediately. If, however, is like a game, and this game is getting very popular, and maybe for the first 3 months I don't show any advertisements, so now the user is hooked, he has an account, he has a profile, it's super powerful and so forth, and he doesn't want to stop playing, maybe at that point the user is going to be saying, okay, I'm going to You know, there is a big advertisement every once in a while. Fine, I really want to play this game. So again, depending on how much the user likes you, you will be able to push for things, but there is always a trade-off in terms of not exploiting the user's patience. And yeah, a while ago I was doing some research on this kind of a behavior, and I framed them under the name annoyware. Again, programs that are not necessarily malicious, but they really annoy the user. And some of these things were interesting. For example, check the first one on the left. This free audio download things, this was a legitimate advertisement. The trick is the following. You see this exit? This was a fake button. This was done in a way that you see exit, so the user would actually click on the X to close it, but the click actually will go to the bottom and click on advertisement, and so this will be registered as a click to the advertisement, and in turns, the advertising framework and the app developer would actually get more money out of it. Again, because this would be recorded as a click, and clicks are more valuable. So it was very interesting. The second case here is some kind of scareware stuff, like telling you, oh, warning, you have a virus installed on your phone, and then if you click remove now, then you actually go to, I think maybe the point was the Play Store, and they will push you to install some kind of application cleaner or some kind of a another application, and that's another way to monetize things. And the third case, this is just an example of some experiments I did. I took some applications from a website. I took one of these test phone I had. I installed a bunch of apps, and I waited for some time. I installed like 50 apps at a time, and then I waited, and then after 3-4 days, I found all this crap on my phone. So if you can see on the top, you have tons of notifications, and then you have a bunch of icons, shortcuts pushed by all these applications. Some of these are interesting or particular, let's say. So, and again, the idea is that if you click on them, you're gonna go to the website of this specific website, and probably the companies that paid to push for this stuff paid good money, and in exchange the user is annoyed like this. Cool. Okay, so moving on the same topic of advertisement. As of now, we just discussed how things can get annoyed, but now I would like to discuss ad click frauds. So these are frauds that somehow are able to generate an income stream that is significant for the attackers, and it explores a different aspect than the annoying the user. And the idea is the following in this kind of fraud. The idea is that, as I showed before, you have the app developer that writes the app, and then the app embeds an advertising framework. And so the idea is to scam the advertising framework in a way that the app itself contains the advertising framework, but it also contains some logic to automatically click on all the advertisement that you can see. So somehow it tries to simulate the user's clicks, and these are going to be recorded as the user clicked on the advertisement, and the app developer is going to get more money. Okay, so the app and the ad views, the problem is that the app and the ad views, so the view that actually contains advertisement, live in the same sandbox. This is part of the same application. So the app somehow has a way to automatically interact with this kind of advertisement. And again, to the ad network, also to the ad framework, it seems that the user clicked on the ads, and so somehow it gives back the money and records this as a click. So the ad developer gets money, and the idea is that also the ad framework gets money, because the user clicked, and the app developer clicked, so the app developer gets more money. This more money doesn't come from the sky. More money comes because the advertisement framework got more money from the brand that want to publicize stuff. Okay, so somehow it's a kind of a fraud that the app developer does, but also benefits the advertising framework. It's a kind of a weird incentive. Okay, so why would advertising frameworks try to protect from this kind of threat? They're getting free money after all. So the net result is, again, the brand gets scammed. The problem is for advertising frameworks is that yes, it's true, they get free money, but the advertiser, if the advertiser knows about these problems and these threats, then the advertiser loses trust in the publisher, in the advertising framework. So for example, if you have an advertising framework that somehow doesn't fight at all this kind of malicious practice, then me as a brand would probably never go with this advertising framework, because I spend tons of money, there are going to be tons of clicks, but maybe many clicks are actually fake, so I'm going to pay for nothing. So somehow it is in the best incentive of the advertising framework to show that it actually cares about these attacks, and it tries its best to detect these attacks so that the brand is not unjustly charged for clicks that actually never happened. They were just simulated by the application itself. And so there were some efforts from these companies trying to do automatic traffic detection. And at the beginning, automatic clicks were actually easy to detect. They were very, very basic. So they were implemented with simple interactions. And again, it was very easy to distinguish real users from bots. But with time passing, then bots got more evolved. And so now you have bots that are able to simulate the real user's behavior. And they really can simulate users filling forms and watching videos and so forth. And again, there are several links of recent massive advertising frauds. Again, here there is one link, but there are many around. In this case, there were millions of users infected and tracked. So it could be really large scale things, and this could be a lot of money. And for this case, for example, they were somehow recording and tracking what the user was doing, and then they were copying the actual user behavior in these apps so that they could generate fake traffic and when automatically clicking around the advertisement, and somehow automatically bypass so fraud detection systems. So somehow these guys implemented some kind of a tracking mechanism, not because of tracking user private information, not because of tracking so that no, it was tracking so that the system could learn how the user would click on things, and so this knowledge would then be used to automatically click on things and bypassing automatic fraud detection systems. Okay, so very interesting thing. In some cases, it's very difficult to simulate that you are a user, and so click farms were born. And in this case, you have large groups of very, very low paid workers whose job is just to click on ads. And we're talking about actual humans that as a job click on ads. So it's very interesting. There are figures and pictures and YouTube videos that show things like this. You have these rooms with tons of phones, and then what the people do is to click around things. And again, these are real phones, they're not emulators, because you want to simulate that is a real phone. And now advertising frameworks try to understand if they're an emulator or not. So it's the classic arm race, and as of now, the humans are, some humans are winning it or losing, depending on your point of view. Another interesting fraud about advertisement is about hiding ads. So somehow what you could do as an attacker is to, again, the attacker here is still the app developer. You take your app and then you include multiple advertising frameworks. This is not illegal. This is not a fraud per se. Of course, it's tricky for an app developer to include too many advertising frameworks, because one advertising framework might need to be shown at the top, and then the second one at the top, and just after, at some point the space goes away. And so what you could do as an attacker is to somehow hide the ads. So somehow you embed the advertising frameworks, and then you hide the different components so that the advertising framework thinks is showing the ads to the user, but it's actually not. Okay, so to make this hidden, there are different techniques. One is, for example, to do ad stacking. So you take the different advertisements, you put them one on top of each other. The user is only going to see one, the top one, not the other ones. And for the other ads, it's very difficult to automatically understand, hey, there is something on top of me. Okay. Another thing is called pixel stuffing, where basically you modify the ad view and fit it in 1 by 1 pixel views. So again, the advertisement is technically there, but the user doesn't see it, which means you can put tons of them in and the user is not going to complain. And again, the publisher and advertiser think that the ad was shown, while in fact it was not. Oh, yeah. Another thing about this advertisement is that just to convey some idea about what kind of money we're talking about, there was a big story a couple of years ago. It was a multi-million-dollar scam, and there is a link to the article there. But the idea is that there were 8 apps that were compromised, containing this kind of fraudulent advertisement stuff, and these apps in total had more than 2 billion downloads. Is not super certain in the sense that there was controversy. I think the app denied any wrongdoing, and they said, we don't have control of this component that was allegedly malicious or modified. And again, there is a lot of controversy, so please check the links out, form your own opinion. Honestly, I'm not too interested in knowing if this stuff is true or not, but it's definitely possible. So it's definitely possible that this stuff could have happened. There are some indications that happened. Again, the company, I think, denies everything. I don't know how it ended, but again, technically, it's absolutely possible. And again, I'm now gonna discuss a little bit. I mentioned here that it is a multi-million-dollar scam. Now I want to discuss what kind of techniques these guys allegedly used in their applications. So the idea is the following. One other technique to monetize from advertisement is not only to show advertisement or not only to ask the user to click somewhere, but is if you can convince a user to install another application. So somehow, if you as an app show an advertisement and this advertisement leads to another installation of an app, sometimes depending on the advertising framework used, you can get 50 cents or $3. Again, depending on if your ad shown in your app was the entry point for actually installing the target app. And how does it work? How can a target app know that, hey, I was installed thanks to this other app? Well, there is a mechanism based on installation referrals. The way it works is the following. Let's say that there is an advertisement and then you click on it, you install application X. Now, when application X starts, you can basically look back and check which device, app, or framework should be thanked for the installation. And the way it works is that somehow the application X try to understand which was the app that somehow led to this. And in a benign case, this check would lead to the app that actually led the application to be installed. But in a malicious case, this is not the case, where basically you can have a fraud, where basically called click flooding or click injection, where the malicious app tries to convince the application that is just installed that, oh, it's thanks to me that you were installed. Maybe it's not true. Okay, so these were the steps. And again, these were some of the tasks that these companies, these apps were accused of doing. And again, since for each of these referral, you may get from 50 cents to $3, it's a significant amount of money for just one iteration. Okay, so that's how you get to this multi-millions fraud. So the idea was that these apps, the malicious ones, would listen, would try to understand whether the user just downloaded a new app. And then as soon as the new download is detected, this app would actually try to send off clicks around to ensure that it gets the last click, to ensure that once this application, the installed one, starts, then it detects this cheat app as, hey, I was installed thanks to this one. And so somehow this application would actually win the bounty, even though it had nothing to do with the app being downloaded. And the cool part is that this would work even if the user installed this target application even without advertisement. Okay, so maybe there was no advertisement at all convince the user to install this application X. Maybe the user just went on the Play Store and installed application X, and this trick will still work because this app would spam the system trying to claim, you were installed thanks to me. And maybe it was just thanks to, somebody else, but these guys would actually get the money. There were some bonus points. What these guys would do, allegedly, is that not only they would detect whether an app was downloaded and installed, but this malicious app would actually start the application it was just installed without the user knowledge. Again, at this point, you should know that to start a different app, it's simple. You just need to send an intent to the main activity. So what these malicious apps would do was actually to detect what was the main activity and then send an intent, and that's it. Why? Because this increased the odds for this malicious app to get the credit, because basically you get the credit, the monetary credit, only if this app is installed and is actually run. Okay, so to make sure the user would actually start the app, this malicious app would do it for you. So you don't need to wait for the user to actually click on it. And the other thing that they did was to pass the attribution through many different networks so that it wouldn't be obvious that so many attribution were coming from these apps. Okay, so they really tried to cover their tracks, but somehow they were caught anyways. And again, this was an example, and there was another technique that were used. Basically, they would track keywords typed by users when they're searching for apps to try to somehow understand what the user was searching for. And then it would generate a series of clicks in an attempt to claim the bounty for a potential future installation. So somehow, again, they were tracking what kind of stuff the user would do, and then the app would be alerted, hey, maybe the user is about to install a new application. Let me try to start this attack. Again, just to give you an idea, we were talking about 8 different apps with total of 2 billion downloads. And one of these companies, they did the investigation, analyzed 1 billion apps installed over the past year, and found that 25% were fraudulent. And they calculated an estimate of $1.7 billion were stolen. So we're talking about a lot of money. And for me, when I was trying to study this phenomenon, I was surprised, because for me, advertisement is something we get in applications when they're free, and I never perceived there would be so much money behind this ecosystem. And this kind of attacks showed me the light on how much money we're talking about. And again, this 1.7 billion is not the system, is the amount that was stolen. So of course, we're talking about much more money in general. Okay, so another topic about advertisement, which leads to other interesting things, is the concept of advertisement targeting. One of the main features of this advertising framework is the ad targeting. I mentioned this ad targeting or retargeting before. And the idea of this targeting is the ability of tailoring which ads are shown to which user. Again, if I'm passionate about Nesquik, if I'm really passionate about Nesquik, maybe there is no need to push to push me advertisement on Nesquik. I'm gonna buy it anyways. But maybe I'm a fan of cookie of type X, but I'm not super absolute fan, but I like them. And if the framework knows that I like cookies, maybe they're gonna show me advertisement of similar cookies, so that maybe I'm gonna give them a try. So somehow, if they understand that I'm the person that likes cookies, then they have more incentive, and it makes more sense for them to show me advertisement about cookies. But but it makes less sense for them to actually send me advertisement about Coca-Cola, because maybe I'm not a big fan. Okay, so somehow trying to understand who am I as a user may give them new elements and new information to understand what kind of advertisement makes more sense that I see, so that it's more likely that they click on them, and it's more likely for them that they get more money. So somehow these frameworks build a profile of each user, and again, profile could be user X likes this week, but it could be something more complicated. And remember, this is one of the key features from Facebook or from many other social networks. So somehow they try to get all your likes and pages you visit and friends you have and website you visit, so that they can build a very, very complete profile that goes much more beyond of this user likes next week, so that for them it's much easier to target you with very, very custom advertisements. And on the other hand, you have the advertisers that want to show that want to pay Facebook so that their product could be advertised, that they're very happy with Facebook because Facebook has a lot of information, and it's more likely that Facebook is able to bring their advertisement to the right kind of persons. So if you run advertising on Facebook, you can select, oh, I want only to target male users from 18 to 25 years old. So you can be very, very specific, and that's why Facebook is getting so much money out of this. It's interesting that somehow the Android folks try to limit the kind of a targeting things across applications. So one trick before was that maybe you have two different apps from two different developers, but these apps would contain the same ad framework. And then somehow this ad framework in these two different apps will try to link that, hey, these ad frameworks will contact their backend, and then their backend will say, these two different connections actually are belonging to apps installed on the same device of the same user. And so this being able to establish a link would be very, very powerful, and is very, very powerful. So powerful that Google got annoyed, and in terms of to save users' privacy, they somehow changed the policy of this Android ID. So Android ID is an ID that was unique per device, but now they changed this so that it's unique per device per signing key. So per signing key, per application signing key. What does it mean? It means that in the past, if you have two different apps and you get the Android ID, it's the same. It was the same per device. Now is the same per device per signing key. So these two apps, if they're from two different developers, are signed by two different developers, which means they have two different keys, which means that now these two apps will get different Android IDs, which means that now it's very difficult to track them. It's not as easy as, oh, the Android ID is the same, so this must be from the same application. It's more complicated than this. And but this kind of a targeting and retargeting, this trying to understand, hey, two different apps are actually controlled by the same user, is so powerful that companies and the ecosystem try to extend this even further. So in the case that I described now, we have two different apps on the same phone, and you want to understand that behind these apps there is the same user. But now they try to extend this problem to cross-device tracking. What does it mean? It means that now I have my phone and my laptop, and these advertising frameworks, they want to understand that the user behind this laptop is the same user as behind this phone. So the cross-device tracking. They want to track me across different devices. So again, rephrasing the problem is that users browse the web via their laptop and via their mobile devices, and it would be nice to have some kind of a unified picture of what this user really is. And again, depending on how your things is configured, your Chrome on laptop may not be linked to your Android device profile. Now I think it's much more overlapping, but I hope you see what I'm trying to say here. That depending on the scenario, you have two different identities and they're not strictly connected together. Again, cross-device tracking kicks in, and they try to bridge the gap and try to track users across different devices. And so it's really an attempt to link users behind many devices. This could be laptop, personal computers, television, mobile phone, your smartwatch, and so forth. Okay, it's very generic. Now, why is it so powerful? Because cross-device tracking enables ad retargeting. So somehow, here is one scenario. You are in front of your television and there is an advertisement about next week. okay? And then somehow they want to understand that you are in front of your television and you have your phone next to you. And so what this retargeting tries to do is to show you something about Nesquik, for example, and then later on in the day, maybe 15 minutes later, they show you the same product on your phone. It turns out that it's kind of a, showing advertisement on one platform and then just later on the second platform somehow enforces, not enforces, but strengthen the kind of the message of an advertisement. So it seems it's quite effective in terms of catching the attention of the user. Also because it's a bit creepy, right? I see advertising about Nesquik and then, I just somehow understand it, but not really following it, just advertisement. And then 15 minutes later, I get a notification about Nesquik. I will freak out like, hey, are these guys listening to me? How do they know? Yeah, there are many, techniques. But again, I guess you see the point of why these companies try to have frameworks so that you can do these kind of tricks, so that the users remember you better. So again, going back to our example, you are in front of your television and then there is an advertisement about a topic, and then the device that you have, your mobile device, also shows you something, and the user is more likely to remember about that. And again, is the advertising framework on your phone that maybe is able to bridge the gap and show something relevant? It's extremely creepy, and but also extremely powerful. Since it's powerful, there is some kind of incentives to monetize, or there is a possibility to monetize this thing. So how can it be done? This is not simple, right? There are many security protections to avoid that these kind of things can actually happen. So how can it be done? Well, if you think about Google, they can do this. For them, it's very easy. So if you are logged in on your laptop and on your mobile phone, Google already knows everything. You are basically logged in on these two different phones with the same user. And so whatever you do on one, you also, it's linked on whatever you're doing the other one. So, these two things are different devices, but they're really logged in with the same account. So as long as you use Google things, Google knows everything. Same for Facebook. If you are logged in Facebook on your machine and on your mobile device, they know that whatever you do there is the same person. But the idea is, how can normal companies can do this? How can they do this? If you're not Google, if you don't have a system where everybody is logged in your system, how can a normal advertising framework be able to link to different things and to different devices? Again, Google can establish a link, but what about other companies? So there are some techniques, but there was one that caught our attention. And with some colleagues, we did a study on a technique called ultrasound-based cross-device tracking. It seems some sci-fi stuff, but this was real. There was a real, and there are real companies behind this thing, and it was extremely creepy. And now I would like to explain how this stuff actually works. So, creepy technology, and the idea is that they try to solve the cross-device tracking problem. So they try to track users across multiple devices. Again, let's keep the example of you are in front of your television and you have your phone next to you, and somehow there is some kind of an entity that tries to link the fact that this television is owned by you with your phone. Okay, so that this television and this phone are backed by the same person. The crazy trick is the following. They would use the microphone on your phone, and this could be also the microphone on your laptop, to pick up ultrasound-based beacons emitted by other devices around you. So somehow your television would emit some codes in the ultrasound frequency area. So basically the humans will not hear it, is above 20K in terms of hertz. And the microphone on your mobile device would somehow filter for these frequencies in the ultrasound that we don't hear, and somehow decode these tokens, these beacons. And from these beacons, they would understand, oh, this beacon was sent from advertisement X, which means that this user actually saw advertisement X right now. And so now I can do retargeting. So there are several companies that were doing something like this. The main one we studied was Silverpush. There is an article. If you Google for them, you're going to see them. There is a lot of press about them. They moved on different things. So this study was from 2016, 2017. But I believe this company still exists. And now I would like to explain better how these things actually work with the diagram. So let's imagine we have our own application, and then there is a backend server somewhere. And again, let's say that this application uses one of these ultrasound-based cross-device tracking advertising framework. And again, I'm not making this up. There were apps on the Play Store that were embedding this kind of framework. Okay, so this is the Google Play Store, the real Play Store. Okay, so actual users installed apps that included this ultrasound-based cross-device tracking thing I'm describing now. So it's a real thing. So let's say that's the case. The way it works is that maybe I'm now in front of my television or in front of my laptop, as in this new example. And the idea is that you basically go on your laptop and you go and you visit the website, which contains some advertisement. And this advertisement inside stores some kind of a token, okay, this ACB. What happens then is that they use the speaker of your laptop to somehow emit some code encoded in the ultrasound spectrum. So you do not hear it, but the speaker is emitting the sound that somehow encodes ACB. And now this ultrasound-based cross-device tracking advertising framework would require access to the microphone and somehow filters out these things and decodes and reads from the ultrasound spectrum ACB. At this point, your phone would send a request to the backend saying, hey, this specific phone just got a token of ACB. And now the server is able to understand, wait a second, I just gave ACB to this laptop. This means that the person, this laptop and this device are actually in the same room, which means they're owned probably by the same user. And so they're able to do the link. Okay? It's very creepy. What's even creepier is that we found out that this stuff would actually work even if you use Tor. So for those that don't know, Tor is a browser that is used to anonymize your communications with the internet. So you just take Tor, which is a modified browser, so that again you join the Tor network, so that you are anonymous on the, let's say, anonymous on the internet. And so once you connect to a server, they don't know your real IP address. But the idea is that an attacker who somehow inject JavaScript in your browser session that would emit token, and then maybe an advertising framework on your phone would send back this token decoded through ultrasound to the same network backend. And now this network backend could link the anonymized identity that you have in Tor with the non-anonymized identity that you have on your mobile device. Okay, so it could be very tricky. And again, we wrote a paper about this a while ago, and that's a link if you are more interested about this. But again, we were really freaked out. We actually tried to play with some proof of concept, and this stuff actually works. So it was very interesting to work with this technology, and very creepy. Okay, so we're getting to the end of today. The last topic I want to explore is, how does malware actually get on your phone? So as of now, we checked a crazy amount of different malicious things and why they want to do things, and why they what they want to do, why they want to do it, how they monetize it. We go from actual malware to advertisement. We try to understand the scale of advertisement. So at this point, I hope I convince you that this malware, it's real. There are good incentives to do this, and we're talking about a lot of money depending on the case. But how does malware actually get on your phone? Okay, because after all, whatever I discussed requires for the bad guy to manage to convince you or manage to get a malicious application running on your phone. And it's not that simple. There are multiple security mechanisms to bypass for an attacker to be able to run malware on your phone. The first one is the Google Play Store's vetting process. if you have an Android phone, by default, usually you can install apps only from the Play Store. So to install app from the Play Store, the app needs to be there. So somehow the app needs to be past this vetting process. The other thing is that even if the app is on the Play Store, each app needs to be manually installed. So unless the user installs it, the app cannot get there on the phone. Why would the user install a malicious app? Then once the app is on the phone, there are still many security mechanisms that try to prevent abuse. And last, there is a permission system, as we know. And this permission system, basically, the user is asked for everything. So for every possible very sensitive activity, the user needs to say, yes, I'm okay with it. So it's not that simple. So even if it's difficult to get the app on the store, the user needs to be convinced to install it. And even if after install it, there are security mechanisms and a permission system in place to prevent abuse. So what's going on here? So let's start to focus on the vetting process, the first entry. So the idea is that once you submit an app to the Play Store, Google scans it, scans each APK that is submitted, okay? And so the app needs to pass security checks, and only after these checks are passed, then the app is available for the users. So if the app doesn't pass the check, then it's not published, okay? So the checks need to be passed. And from the very high level overview, what do these checks do? They use a combination of techniques. Of course, this is a black box. This stuff is not documented. Nobody really knows what's going on. This is a description of what's my best understanding of what's going on. And again, it's a simplification of what's going on, just to give you an idea about the different techniques they use. The first thing I think they do is static program analysis. So they take the app, they don't run it, they just try to scan for maybe no malicious things and so forth. And then they try really to understand what the app is doing without running it. So of course, the static program analysis reflects to the static reverse engineering that we discussed in the past. And the idea is that they do this automatically. And they try to look for malicious common pattern, and they try to identify common patterns of malice, and they have some heuristics to flag an app for being potentially malicious. Then they have a dynamic program analysis part. And again, this is my speculation, but it could be that they use this dynamic program analysis part only if they have some evidence, or if they have some doubts that something malicious could happen, or maybe they are not sure, so they run it dynamically. The idea here is that they want to try to understand what the app is doing, but they actually run it for a while, usually 5 minutes. They log what it does, and depending on the results, then they say, okay, that looks good or not. Again, my understanding is that they are using emulators. This was, to the best of my knowledge, up to last year. I don't have any more insights, so I don't know if they changed the approach, but I think at least some parts are still based on emulators. Again, the scale is big. They receive a lot of submissions. They need to do this test also for every update. So even Google may have issues to actually run these things to real phones. And then they also do analysis on the metadata of the app on the developer. So if it's a super well-known developer, of course, is less likely that they're going to introduce malware. If it's just an account that has just been created, then maybe each of these apps should be inspected with extra care. And how is it possible to bypass it? Well, as it should be clear from all the discussions we had, it's always a trade-off, and it's always an arm race in terms of automated detection. For example, for the static part, you could use code obfuscation, you could use dynamic code loading, which my understanding is now is against the policy, but there are some tricks to avoid detection. And with these tricks, then it could be very difficult for Google to say statically this is bad or not. Also because several benign apps still use this kind of things. About the dynamic analysis, then what you could do, for example, is to detect the emulator. And then if you detected you're executed under an emulator, then you don't do the malicious functionality, which means this malicious functionality is not going to be shown in the logs and you go undetected. What you could do much more effective is that you intentionally delay the malicious functionality. And this would defeat also analysis on real devices. You just wait. They need to analyze your app with a specific time frame. They cannot run the app for 3 days. They run it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And what you could do is to just delay the triggering of the malicious functionality after maybe 1 day or after 1 hour. And if you just wait 5 minutes, you're not going to see anything bad. They would also, a malicious app could actually check for users' presence. So try to investigate whether in the environment there is a user. If not, it wouldn't do anything. So it would do something only if it's really sure that there is a user using the phone. And again, it could be tricky for automatic systems to really simulate correctly the presence of the user. And again, it's the classic arm race. So there are several tricks to bypass this as well. The other important thing is that Google can only control the Play Store. And as I mentioned, there are several other third-party stores, and Google cannot prevent the malware to actually reach these stores. So it's up to the owners and to the maintainers of the third-party stores to keep their store clean, but not all these stores have the resources and have the incentives of Google, of the Google has to protect the Play Store. Okay. Cool. So as I mentioned, the second thing is that these apps are manually installed after all, needs to be manually installed after all. So how can the user be pushed to install these applications? Well, once the Google vetting process is bypassed, then again, why would the user install it? There are several tricks. One is social engineering, again, exploiting human stupidity or the fact that humans are not always extremely focused. So somehow creating a way to push the user to install it. Many websites still ask for Flash plugin, and then there were many malware called, this is a Flash plugin. Of course, it's not true, but that's a trick to convince the user to install it. Same for games that exist for maybe iOS or for personal computers, but not for Android. Malware people just put the game, some application with the same name of the game that does not exist on Android, so that the user say, oh, my favorite game now just came out on Android, let me install it. And maybe it's not the game, it's the malware. So that falls under the social engineering tricks. Second one is repackaging, where basically, I take an application and then I take it, I put my own thing and repackage it and put it on the store. And I frame it as, this is a better version of it. And the third one is, and again, on this packaging, I have some slides later. And the third category is benign becomes malicious, aka turning bad. And again, I have some notes on this later on. So I believe I have some notes on social engineering first. So basically, what I want to do is to discuss in depth these three categories. So social engineering, as I mentioned, is about convincing the user to do to say, this app is exactly what you were looking for, so please install it. And there are many tricks. So again, similar looking apps on the store, and you hope that the user is confused. Some ads may point the user to the wrong app. So somehow you could drive users to the malicious app through advertisement. You could offer a free version of an app that is actually paid. So for example, there is a popular app that is paid, and there is no free version. So the malware author could do was to create a new app, which is basically framed itself as the free version of this application. And some user would actually Google for, free version of application X, would actually get to this malicious app, install it, and get compromised. Okay, this works all the time. You could also claim that you have extra features. You have basic application, and now you can say, my version is actually the same, but you have all this, and this. And it could be that this, and this doesn't even exist, or maybe it exists, but in the meantime, under the hood, they put the malware. And again, the user is fooled. This is an example of how sometimes it can be tricky to find the correct thing for what you're looking for. This is an example from many years ago when this 2048 game was becoming super popular. And our understanding was that the original was this one highlighted by the red arrow. But if you were looking for it on the Play Store at that point, the original one, let's say, was actually showing later on in the list. Now, is not a very nice example actually, because this 2048 game is not even being introduced by this red arrow one, but it was a very old game. But this is the guy that actually made it very popular, at least 5-6 years ago. I don't remember when. And of course the scoring algorithm was not putting this at the top first one. There is actually a better example for which I don't have a slide, where basically a while ago you could look on the Play Store for WhatsApp, and then the first WhatsApp was the real one, but then you would have a number of different apps called WhatsApp with the same icon, and then it was possible for a user to be confused and to install the bad one. So again, social engineering playing on user confusion and trying to frame an app as the one you actually need, while it's not true. Sorry. Cool. So about repackaging, again, you should understand, I guess you understand as of now, after all these classes, that repackaging is actually very easy and can be automated. So what you could do is to download an application, you unpack it, you add a feature, and then you repack it. Now, this feature could be a real feature or could be something malicious. And it's nice technique for the attackers because it's very easy to do. You can automate it. You can do this on a massive amount of apps. You can automatically repush them on different stores, and it can get really tricky to understand that two apps are actually a repackaged version of one another. And again, you can upload it with a different name on the same store. There are different variants. You get the point here. The point here is very trivial from a technical standpoint, which means that developer, the malicious actor, can create a very big volume of these applications with not much effort. Different use cases. Again, you can have this paid app repackaged, but uploaded as free. But you could put some advertisement inside. So maybe the app is actually legitimate. They just put some advertisement, or they modify the advertisement so that the malware author actually gets the money, not the original developer. Okay, so maybe the app doesn't do anything bad except this. They could add functionality to steal users' data so that they can resell them. They can actually add malicious functionality. So this could actually happen. Again, repackaged free apps could be advertised with extra features, and these features may not even exist. It's difficult for the user to understand this, and maybe when they understand that these features do not exist, maybe it's too late for them. And then one of the last example I have is the storing bed, but I think it's very, very interesting. So the storing bed is the following scenario of how an attacker can actually get the malware on the user's phone. So I was saying that the storing bed, basically you have the app that is initially benign and suddenly becomes malicious. You say, how is it possible? Well, again, there are different scenarios. The idea is the following: that basically you have an app that is actually benign, but then the attacker modifies it, and then the app becomes malicious at the next update. And depending on your settings, this update could happen automatically. Okay, so during the night, maybe you get an update and you wake up and the app actually became malicious. This can happen in multiple ways. One thing that is underestimated usually is that there could be a legal change of ownership, which means that the app, I write the app and then it gets popular, and then another person asks me, oh, I can give you X amount of dollars. Do you want to sell the app to me? And maybe if it's a lot of money, maybe I'm going to say yes. So I could actually sell the app to a different developer, and then this developer could abuse this popularity to do whatever he wants to do. And he already has a big user base, so he could modify the app and put different things, put advertisement and so forth. So once I sell the app, then the new developer is in control of it. This new developer could be malicious or not. It could also be the developer gets sacked. This could happen. So and it's an actual problem, of course. Or an entire software editor gets sacked. And this was extremely nice case, so I want to dig a bit deeper into this. It is not related to Android. It's related to Mac and iOS. But again, this really shows the point very well, I think, about what could potentially happen. So what happened is that the following. So there is Xcode. So Xcode is a very popular code editor for Apple, macOS, and you use this to develop apps. And what happened is that somebody uploaded a malicious version of Xcode on a Chinese market. Okay, so the good one, the original one was still there, but somebody uploaded a malicious version on the Chinese market. And it turns out that this is the theory, that the network speed is lower in China, and to reach the actual US market. And so developers in China look for a local copy, and they somehow hit on this malicious version on the Chinese market. And what this malware would do is that all apps compiled with this malicious version would actually be modified so that they would contain malware. And this malware then would be installed on the users. So they found out that over 4,000 benign apps were infected, including WeChat. And these apps would actually include behavior such as stealing user device information, read-write clipboard, so that where you could have passwords, or hijack opening URLs, and so forth. So it's really, really powerful and very, very interesting. And last thing I want to cover for today is how to bypass security mechanisms. This is one of the last steps in terms of, I get the malware on your phone, and then, so what? There are security mechanisms. Even if the attacker can install the app, again, there are many security in place. And this is where security vulnerabilities kick in, okay? So there are bugs, and it's important for you to understand, to classify bugs in your mind, to understand this bug is important, this bug is less important, this bug is much more severe, but only in this context, in this other context, this is much more severe. So this kind of discussion and what we call threat model analysis is extremely important, and is going to be the focus of the next class. But again, I hope that now you understand, we have malware, on the other side we have security vulnerabilities, and they are two different topics, but they are quite intertwined, okay? And vulnerabilities are used by malware. Eventually, security is trying to focus on protecting users from these bad guys. And I hope it's clear how this malware and security vulnerabilities play a role in this. So security bugs can allow you to bypass permission checks, mount privilege escalation attacks, attack other apps, get code execution on phones, maybe just by being on the same Wi-Fi, and so forth. So again, we're going to cover this in depth later on. But again, this class was mostly about the malware part and making sure that we're going to explore and discuss the security bugs problems in the correct context. Okay, so you should know why this matter. And again, we're going to see more in the next classes. And with this, I think we're done for today. Have a good week. Ciao, ciao.